So let's get straight into the match preview. It is Leicester against Tottenham at the King Power, which is usually a very feisty atmosphere, particularly when it's a night game, midweek game under the lights. And but Locke said it ain't going to be, Leicester fans are not going to be up for this whatsoever, which I do still find kind of hard to believe. First game back in the Premier League, no matter how you're coming into the season, under the lights, you've got hours to get those pints down your neck. I'm telling you, the atmosphere will be ferocious from the start. Maybe if Spurs can get a goal or two early doors, maybe then the ferocity from the Leicester fans will come out. But I do think the atmosphere will be big to come into it.
But from what you've seen from Tottenham and also in pre-season, we definitely like to come out the traps flying, try and get an early goal, try and set the tone early in the game. And if we can do that, quieten the crowd early doors, and it can't, and if we can take the lead early and the crowd start to turn on Leicester, it can get a bit ugly, I reckon. So be very interesting. But games at the King Power between Spurs and Leicester, there's been a lot of very good ones. In the you think 6-1 we won there, back under Pochettino. You
3-2.
think the 3-2 under Bergwijn last season we got battered 4-1
2 seasons ago.
Sorry, 2 seasons ago, the last time we played them. So there's been some great games, but this is probably the most confident I've been beating a Leicester side in a while, to be honest, because usually they always give us a tough game. Yeah,
absolutely. Looking at the form of the two teams coming into it, I mean, not too much to go on because it's pre-season form, but look at that. Leicester, 3 losses on the bounce, 1 win in their last 5. Spurs do have 2 losses on the bounce. However, we did come up against a Bayern Munich side once in Korea, once back in London. But look at that. 2 goals scored for Leicester in their last 5 games of pre-season.
That's the thing. Who's going to score? Because Vardy actually scored in their opening pre-season against Villarreal. They beat them, and that's positive. But he's been injured ever since then, and they're really struggling to get goals. And who's going to be getting goals in the Premier League? And I think that pre-season shows that there could be a lot of struggle to get those goals, to be honest. I think it's emblematic of the problem. Then Cooper isn't the most expansive manager anyway, so they're going to have to take the chances when they come, and it's going to be difficult to see who's taking them.
They've played 5 games in pre-season. They opened up with a win against Villarreal, then a win against Shrewsbury, and then they've lost to Palermo, Augsburg and Lens without scoring a goal in their last 3 pre-season games.
So it's no surprise that Locks is coming into such negativity. They're not scoring goals, they're losing games, and they haven't had the best summer, have they? So it's quite worrying as a Leicester fan. And I know pre-season you can't really make too many sweeping judgments, but I think one thing what you say about pre-season is I don't think you can get too positive about it. But I also think you can definitely, when things are like that, you can't score a goal. That's got to be a big concern, even if it is just pre-season. The fact that I don't know how many chances they've created, but the fact you can't put the ball in the back of the net, with the lead up to the season, if you're a Leicester fan, you've got to be looking at that thinking, is that going to be emblematic of the problems we're going to have this season?
He mentions Fatau as being, the danger man for Leicester, who's... Is that what they sing for him? He's the one that's, he's coming on a permanent this summer after being on loan, a good successful season last year. But apart from that, the business that they have done is Bobby Deckelt-over-Reed, Michael Golding for $6 million from Chelsea. I have no clue who he is.
Probably.
Caleb Okoli from Atalanta for $12 million, and Buonanotte on loan from Brighton, who I actually thought was a fairly decent player last year, Buonanotte.
He was, but he was a squad player at Brighton. Yeah. And when he did play, he was good, but he wasn't.
He's 19. He was 18 last season.
Yeah, he's not exactly getting goal contributions galore. Look, but I think he's a good player. Don't get me wrong.
3 goals and an assist last year.
If you're relying on him, I don't know if that's I don't know how successful that's going to be. Fatu, as you say, he's an exciting player, but this is a Premier League up against such unbelievable talent, and it's going to be very difficult for them. But I do think they got some good players. I think, Harry Winks is a good player, albeit what I would say is I think it really suited him playing Maresca football, and I don't know how he's going to do playing Cooper football. I think it's less suited to him.
Well, I was actually watching an interview from Harry Winks, and he was saying, first of all, he was highlighting the problems that Spurs do have, saying that Spurs are a very good side, but they've definitely got defensive vulnerabilities, which we're going to look to exploit. But what he was saying about the differences between Cooper and Maresca, he said Cooper's come in and he hasn't really changed much. He's trying to carry on what Maresca was trying to do. And it's interesting because it plays into what Locks was saying as well about it's kind of similar to Maresca ball, but it's kind of a half-ass because he was saying, this is the Premier League now, though. You're going to have to try and get points in different ways because we're not going to be the best team, or they're not going to be the best team in the league by any stretch of the imagination, and they're going to come up against, solid outfits week in, week out. So they're going to need to find different kind of avenues.
Reality is, if you're just copying Maresca and it's not your plan, then how successful could it ever be? Because Maresca's the one who's, adopted this idea. He's the one who's implemented it. It's his vision. And if Cooper's coming in and saying, I'm not going to change much, well, it's not your vision. So how well do you know the system? Like, do you know it as perfectly as Maresca? Can you implement it as well as Maresca can? Do you have full belief like Maresca did in that system? I always feel like managers, to be really successful, they have to come in and implement their own style on the team and put their own footprint on it. And if he's just coming in copying the last guy, that's a bit of a red flag for me. Like, you've got to come in and have belief in your own methods rather than saying, I'm not going to change much, because if it's not your plan, like, how well do you actually know it? Like, that's got to be a bit of an issue for me. So we'll see how well he does. Look, he did all right at Forest, Cooper. He kept them up a couple times, and then also got them promoted from the Championship, and they really liked him there at Forest. I think he was a former player there, I think, so he had a bit of goodwill. But Cooper, they did like Cooper, so I do think he's a good manager. I just think he's coming into a really difficult situation here.
It feels like it's like just a complete uphill battle, and basically the writing's on the wall a bit for Cooper already, and he hasn't even started.
Yeah,
it
reminds
like
me.
That,
who was it? I'm trying to remember. Who was that former Villa manager, Smith? Like, he joined like a newly promoted team as well because they lost their manager, and like they just kind of picked like someone who did a decent job somewhere else. And I think he came in to manage Norwich maybe when they lost.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
and like they just brought him in because he did all right at Villa, and like maybe it could work because after Farke left, who's like a real fan favourite, or did really well, and he completely flopped. And it reminds me of that kind of appointment. Like, they kind of just got him in because he did okay at Forest, but did they have full belief he's the right guy?
What's different to our Nuno appointment?
The Nuno was a disaster.
But that's the same kind of vibe.
Yeah, we had no one. We just brought him in. But Nuno was a bit different because we had a lot of time to plan without Mourinho. They were kind of, Maresca left at the beginning of the summer. It's kind of been forced upon them. But I get what you're saying. It's like a guy who, did the board really have full belief in it? Did they really plan with him in mind? I don't know. I just feel like they've taken a punt on him because he kept Forest up, and they're thinking, can he do the same with us?
Yeah. We were mentioning before about the past games between Spurs and Leicester, and if you just bring up this graphic, I mean, that just shows you it's always a mad game when Spurs play Leicester. We did lose 4-1, but before that, what a great record. I think it was 6-1, not 6-2.
No, 6-2.
It was 6-2?
It was 6-2.
What was the last game of the season one when Lamela scored 2? Was that 4-2 one?
No, that was at Wembley. That was 5-4, I think.
5-4, that was it.
5-4
mad game.
Yeah.
Lamela actually scored a hat-trick, but one was given an own goal, right?
Yeah, Harry Kane got a couple. Kyle Walker-Peters, I think, got a hat-trick of assists that day. Had some mad games. That game there, 4-2, that was last day of the season. We knocked Leicester out of the Champions League, beating them at the King Power. Gareth Bale came off the bench and scored twice,
Yeah,
I remember
that.
Bergwijn there. The 3-1, that was, I think, Sonny scored from outside the box in that one. And then obviously the 6-2, that was also mad. I think like Tielemans had a penalty miss, I think. Like, they went 1-0 up very early on. Maddison scored that day for Leicester, but we ended up running riot and winning 6. That was the game Sonny came on and scored a hat-trick. He came off the bench. We rested him.
Yeah.
Everyone was going mad, and then he came off the bench and scored a hat-trick.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we've had this. Usually, it's goals galore when we play Leicester.
Do you expect it to be the same this weekend?
I mean, why not? Because we're going to go for it. And if they're not up for it and we take an early lead, I mean, we could really go for the throw. And it'll be good to set a statement early for Tottenham, get Solanke a goal early. Maybe if Odegaard comes off the bench, he can get a goal contribution. I wouldn't be surprised if we really go for it on Monday night. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's a lot of goals.
I mean, we do go for it every game, don't we?
That's the thing. So why can't there be a lot of goals?
Yeah. If you bring up the Leicester predicted lineup, I mean, it might be slightly different. He did mention Mavropanos is going to play up front and probably Fatawu on the wings, and Vestergaard will probably be in there instead of Okoli, their new signing. But looking at that team, there's not much in that team to suggest that that they can beat us man for man. But with a new team coming into the Premier League first year, you never know how performances can rise.
Of course, you've always got to be a bit wary, and I'm looking at our team and look, Ndidi on his day was a brilliant defensive midfielder. Winks has had a really good time with it at Leicester. I think Mavdidi and Fatawu could be decent counter-attacking options. Faust was starting for Belgium in the Euros. You got James Justin, who was a decent fullback as well. But I think a lot of it does go with momentum and feeling around the club, and the fact that it's so negative definitely won't help the situation. I think Cooper's got to make this team better than the sum of its parts, and if there's a split in the dressing room or a split between the fan base at the moment and the club, then that doesn't help that situation. Everyone needs to be pulling in the same direction, especially when you're in a relegation battle. Those things really can make a difference. So, I mean, I think obviously there are good players there. Look, when you're in the Premier League, every team has good players, but I'm not looking at that team thinking how do we stop them. I think if we can just dominate possession, I think it's going to be very difficult for them to find those moments of quality on the counter. I think if we press them really aggressively, I can see them giving up chances. I really can.
Yeah, I agree. And one player that's going to be returning to play against us for the first time is Harry Winks, Tottenham boy, Tottenham Academy product. I'm sure he'll get a good reception from the travelling fans. But this is a massive game for him, isn't it? His whole family are Tottenham. They'll be in the crowd, as he stated in the interview I watched. I mean, surely he's going to want to have a big performance in this game.
Of course, and he was asked before the season, who does he want first game? He said Tottenham. He got his wish. And he's going to be out there to prove a lot of people wrong. Because a lot of people wrote him off. A lot of people said he wasn't good enough. Obviously, he had a really good year in the Championship for Leicester. I do worry about how suited he is to this kind of football compared to Maresca. I think the heavy possession base really suited his passing game because he's a very good passer of the ball. So whether we can overrun him or not, I think is going to be a big question mark when he's taking the ball with his back to play and he's asked to be press resistant in turn. Is he going to be able to get away from our midfielders and things like that? That's a big question mark. But maybe if he's backed up by Ndidi, that will help with the legs and he can help cover the space. But I think on his day, in the right system, he'd be a good player. But I just question whether this kind of system will suit him. We'll have to wait and see.
Talking about Maddison with locks before, a bit concerning for me what he was saying about him, knowing him, that he's played for Leicester for a good number of years and he knows him quite well, seeing as we've only had him for a year. And don't know, did it concern you what he was saying? You know, he was saying that he comes in, plays well. When he gets injured, it's hard for him to recapture that form.
It's not good. I mean, if he has history of it and it's happened again at Tottenham, then it can't be a positive thing. Good thing is he says he always starts the season well. So hopefully, if he is going to be in the first 11 at the start of the season, he does start the season in confident mood and willing to and you know, getting goal contributions and really having an input in the team. But that is a concern, and it is something that has, you know, thinking back on Maddison, as much as he's obviously a great player, I always thought, you know, it has happened at Leicester, but you put him around better players and, you know, hope, and if he can stay fit, that wouldn't happen to Tottenham, but it has happened. So that is a concern, but just because that's been a pattern doesn't mean it's doomed to repeat itself always. If he can keep himself fit and can ride that momentum of a good start to the season and not get a big injury, then there's no who's to say that he can't keep that consistency up. But if it continues to happen, that's got to be a concern. It's obviously got to be something we've got to look at for sure. We can't be having a player only play for half a season. We need a player who could be fit and in confident mood whenever he's picked to play and whenever he's available. So obviously I'm willing to, you know, give him more time, give him more seasons. And obviously we've seen in a Tottenham show what he can do and how good he can be. We've seen in Leicester show how good he can be when he's on form. But it's not a good thing. I can't sit here and say it's a positive thing because it's not. It's obviously very negative. So he's got to show that he can be consistent for a whole season. But there's no reason why he can't. I think he can. He just got to show it.
He just hasn't shown it, is the concern. And I feel like Maddison last year was pretty safe in the team. He didn't really have anyone to come and take his spot. I mean, we had Giovanni Lo Celso there, but Ash didn't seem like he wanted to give Lo Celso the chance to do it on a consistent basis. But now Lucas Bergvall is in the team and he is ready to take that spot. And he's shown on, you know, consistently throughout pre-season. As we mentioned many times on this channel, he's been one of the, you know, most consistent performers in pre-season. So that's got to be a concern if you're James Maddison and your performance level drops.
And Decky as well.
And Decky as well, yeah.
right there, who's playing unbelievably in pre-season. He's really showing what an impact he can make, even be he's playing a bit of a different position. But there are players there. Midfield is stacked this year, and if Maddison is not on it, there are definitely players who can come in and you're confident can make an impact. So if he doesn't step up his game, albeit he is vice captain, he'll be out of the team because there are players who can step in and make an impact. So he's got to make sure that he keeps on top of his game. But I think the competition might help him. Maybe it'll keep him on edge, and that's what he needs.
I think it's really important for Spurs to have a firing start to the season like we did last year, and obviously the injuries that we did get, suspensions that we got, all in the space of that Chelsea game was kind of like, I don't know, it's hard to say that's going to happen again, but I don't want to mention that because I don't want to put any bad luck towards Spurs.
I do think we're more ready for it this year, a Chelsea kind of game, than last year.
Yeah, we are, because our squad is deeper this year for sure. But what I'm saying is we've got Leicester away and Everton at home. Everton's our second game. Everton at home, 2 games in a row, and 2 games where you really think we should get 6 points. And then it starts to get difficult with Newcastle away and Arsenal. So I want us to be going into that run of Newcastle, Arsenal with the most confidence as possible. And the best thing about doing that, the best way to do that is obviously to build up really positive performances and get 2 wins under our belt in these next 2 games. And also with Dominic Solanke, we've seen it many a time before with strikers coming into this club. They go 1 game, they go 2 game, they go 3 game without scoring, and all of a sudden it becomes a thing. So I really want Solanke just to score on his debut and just to go straight at it.
Well, Soldado scored in his first 2 games.
It's true, they're both penalties though.
Yeah, true. Was both penalties, but he did score in his first 2 and it didn't quite work out. But yeah,
Let's say open play goals.
We want, obviously, if he can hit the ground running and get that monkey off his back of getting that first goal, because I do think it can weigh on any striker.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
The longer they go without scoring their first goal, it can weigh on their head, and all of a sudden they start overthinking things. I remember, obviously it wasn't when he first joined, but when Harry Kane, in that second season, like he didn't score for like the first 10 games.
It was the August curse.
And you could see like he was playing on him. He was snatching at things. He was overthinking things. Like he was played for on goal where Kane would be such a usually cool, calm and collected, but he was like snatching at chances. And then he got that first goal and you could see it was like a weight off his shoulders.
And he smashed them in from there.
And he just started like instinctively putting them into the corner and stuff, like taking stuff first time when he was taking an extra touch before. And you can see even a player like as good as Kane, it affected him when he's not scoring. So hopefully Slank can get off and running, and that can make a big difference.
We've seen it so many times in the past, though. You just have to look at Richarlison last season. When was his first goal for Spurs?
It was Sheffield, wasn't it?
Sheffield, that was quite early on in the season. But then after that, he didn't score again. Till Liverpool?
I think because he had injuries, and then you're talking about his first season. His first season, he didn't score in the Premier League till Liverpool.
That's right.
His first goal was in the Champions League against Marseille, but didn't really score until Liverpool. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, we've seen it a number of times. I mean, even going back all the way to like Helder Postiga and players like that. Like, how many number 9s have we signed ever since we've been joining the club? And we're so excited to see them come in. We look at all the data, we see how they're going to fit into the team. It all looks so perfect, and then they just don't get off the ground running.
And then you've got Robbie Keane and Defoe both scored on their debut.
That's true. And Mido
Adebayor scored on his debut.
Yeah. So look, there are circumstances that go both ways. I just really want to see Dom Solanke just get that monkey off his back straight away and then just hit the ground running. That's what we all want to see. And I feel like Locke said, he usually does score against Leicester. Sonny usually scores against Leicester as well. So we do have players in the team that like to go fox hunting, let's just say. And I feel like if we can get a goal or 2 early, I agree with him. After hearing what he says and after hearing what he says, what it's going to be like in the stadium, it could be a bit of a rout. As
well, because we're not a team to let the opposition rest on their laurels. We're going to be pressing them. If they're making mistakes, we're going to pounce on that. Last season, we were the highest in the league for turnovers in the attacking third. And for teams like Leicester who are not confident at the moment, that could definitely play into our hands. And if they're a bit nervy, they're taking too long on the ball, we're getting in their faces, we're pressing high, we're not letting them play out from the back, that could be a very dangerous situation for them. So it could really start getting dangerous if we really assert ourselves in the game.
Yeah, a new signing, Wilson Odobert. Apparently that he will be signed in time to be part of the matchday squad, which is very positive. I don't think he'll start. I think it will be Brendan on the right. But what a great option to have off the bench against tiring legs.
Yeah, brilliant. And the fact that he's so good at dribbling, he's quick, he can commit players. I think it's really, really exciting. And if I know we've got quick players like Werner and Brennan who have had some success coming off the bench when we've needed them. But I think Odegaard, the fact that when he gets the ball to feet, he can really commit players. I feel like Brennan, he's like only really good at running in behind, and same with Werner. Well, Werner's good at the ball to his feet, but when he only has one thing to do, which is shift to the right and then go down the line to the left, he's very good at that. He can run in behind, but and when the ball to his feet, he can be a bit limited. He's quite only good at that. Same with Brennan. With the ball at his feet, he's only really good at going down the line and then cutting it across the face of goal. So having someone with a bit of a different approach like Odegaard, who can ask different questions of his fullback and ask different questions of the defence, and maybe get into different kind of areas. Someone who can go inside and outside and be just as effective. It's going to be a really good option, and I'm really excited to see him in the Spurs shirt.
Yeah. There are... some selections headaches for this weekend, which we'll get into properly in the predicted lineup. But Bissouma is obviously suspended, which you would have assumed he would have been the starting six going into it. You do assume it will be Bentancur. But it's the other two midfielders where there are question marks about, because Maddison's not going into it in great form, albeit he is coming up against his old club and he loves being that pantomime villain. And I think he will rise to the occasion in this sort of game. Kulusevski has been obviously storming through pre-season. He's got a big shout. You've got Lucas Bergvall as well, who's there. You've got Archie Gray. You've got Pape Matar Sarr, who no one's really mentioning at the moment. You've got such a list of talented midfielders which we can choose from. 100%.
I guess we should go into the lineup who we're going to pick.
Well, just before that, let's just quickly go for a score prediction.
Score prediction. I am going to go, I said 3-1 in my Prem predictions. Listening to lots...
Yeah, it makes me a lot more confident.
I think I might go for 4-1 here.
You know what? After hearing him, I'm going clean sheet this weekend. I'm going clean sheet. I'm going to go... I think I'm going to go same as Locks. I'm going to go 3-0.
3-0.
I went for a tight one, 2-1 in Predict the Prem. I wish we could rewrite that now and go for a more convincing one. But usually when I say stuff like that, I get egg on my face. But let's hope for not this weekend. So I'm going 3-0. Sim's going 4-1. Let me know your score predictions in the comments section below.